Hi guys, I'm Kristen and welcome to Studio Knit. So this is sort of a different one. This is Kale time, K-A-L. That means knit along. And now that you have learned how to knit, really what you need to do is you need to sit down and keep doing it. So I thought that I'd have a little video where I can sort of chat with you, and here on camera while I'm knitting, you can be knitting, we can become new knitting BFFs, and hopefully this will be helpful and kind of fun, okay? So let's get started. So in today's knit along, I am simply going to be doing the knit stitch on every single row. If you have your knitting with you, please pick it on up and knit along with me at your own pace. We do not need to be matching each other stitch by stitch, not at all. And if you do not have your knitting with you, I believe this video will still be really valuable to you because I'm going to be discussing questions that I have received during our Absolute Beginner Knitting series from you guys on my YouTube channel. You guys are leaving so many really nice comments. You're super excited for the series, and those have just been wonderful. I'm going to try and find questions that I can answer. This will be sort of like a podcast as well. So let's look at one question from each of the videos in the Absolute Beginner Knitting series. In the first video, my announcement video, Jane Claremont is asking, where did you get your yarn shelf? And I think what she's asking is behind me in my videos, I have a green background with yarn attached to it. And that is something I actually picked up at this really cool place called Scrap here in San Francisco. I also have visited one in Portland, and it is a nonprofit. And it's like a thrift store, but it's all for craft supplies. So, you know, all of those extra craft supplies that you have, you're able to donate them and then purchase craft supplies for a discounted price. And it was hiding in the back. It was sort of like a pegboard. I'm not really sure what it was originally used for, but I thought it would be the perfect little pop of color, and I could add some balls of yarn to it. So that is my new backdrop in my videos. On day one, knitting tools. Well, first off, we have Tara Mitchell, and she says, I personally would like the music to be a bit lower so I can hear everything Kristen has to say. And I took that to heart. I actually took all the background music out of the videos from that point forward, so that you can hear me as clearly as possible. I also close caption my videos. So I type out everything that I say, and on YouTube there's a way to turn on captioning, so you actually are able to follow along what I'm doing. If you're in a situation where you really shouldn't have the audio on, then you can still watch and see all of the words on the screen below. And Barbara Lawson says that she's seen a friend use wooden chopsticks to knit with and that they worked. And yes, they do work. They you don't have the points necessarily on the chopsticks unless you whittle it down yourself. But I think it's really awesome when people get super crafty and come up with materials that they can still use knitting techniques with to create their own awesome creations. So that's cool. So on day two, about knitting yarn, Franca Perotti, she writes, I use synthetic because I can't touch any kind of wool. And, you know, that's really interesting, and it's so true. There are people that have allergies or perhaps ideologies where they do not want to be using any animal products, and that is another great reason why synthetic yarn should not be looked down upon, because it does have a lot of beneficial uses. Oh, also, I love this. Enigma Girl, she talks about a video called Yoshi's Woolly World and encourages people to check it out. I did, and it's so cute. It's all little knitted creatures with knitting backgrounds, and so I just love love when gamers and knitters and different interests can come together like that. So thank you so much for letting us know about that. Oh, and Denny Finch Frederick, she also says that she agrees that choosing a solid color yarn, she says it may seem boring, but it's so much easier to see and understand what you're doing. So for those of you who are knitting for the first time and using a solid color, I hope that it's really helpful to you, because those variegated yarns are super fun, but they can kind of make your eyes a little bit crazy if you're trying to see exactly what you're doing stitch by stitch. Oh, and if this video has been helpful to you so far, do me a favor, like it up. It really helps me out. Oh, also in yarn, Raven Steals the Night, she says, I had no idea there was a number 7 yarn. And that's something that I actually discovered while I was creating this video. You know, there's a lot of really big chunky knits that are popular these days. And so there are jumbo yarns, and there was a new yarn weight number 7 added. So I updated the chart on my website, and it's a really great resource if you are out shopping for yarn or knitting needles, and helping you to figure out exactly how to match them up. On day 3, selecting your knitting needles, Kathy Len, she says, I was wondering if you can teach us how to knit with the cable and circular knitting needles. And I have one circular knitting needle video that really still holds up today. It's probably a couple years old, but it's really popular and really packed in with great information. So I will leave that down below. If you find yourself ready to start knitting in the round with those circular needles, go for it. I think my video will be helpful to you. And as far as doing a cable needle video, that's a great idea. What I do have right now is a playlist of cable knit stitch patterns, and in those I try and be very specific and explain why I'm using my cable needle, how I'm using it, so that you can follow along. Oh, and Barbara Lawson, she says that she got some circular needles at Goodwill and that they were $2. So a couple things about this. You can find knitting materials at some thrift stores. So definitely check out that section next time you go by a Goodwill or any sort of secondhand store. And also she mentions using circular needles. You can use circular needles to knit straight. So that means not attaching it in the round. You just go row by row with circular needles. So if you find yourself that's all you have and you want to knit like we are with our straight knitting needles, you can use circular needles in that way as well. So good going, Barbara. On day 4, we're talking tapestry needle, and this is Enigma Girl again. She had a really great point. She says that she also likes to use the plastic ones because the plastic ones tend to bend, so it's nice to have that instead of the rigid metal needle at times when I'm sewing things in the round. Great point on that. As far as any sort of substitutions, you know, I use that little bobby pin, and Rosia B, she says, I've learned that a closed safety pin works wonders when you can't find a tapestry needle as well. So that is a very cool little tip. Thanks for that. And Linda Neal, she says that a crochet hook can be used instead of a tapestry needle. So for all of you crocheters who are learning how to knit for the first time, I'm sure you have a lot of those crochet needles around. And yes, that's a great point. You can use it to bring your yarn through those loops. And next on day 5, we learned how to make a slip knot, and I love this. The Little Knitter 44. She says, I've only been knitting for 7 years, but sometimes I forget how to make a slip knot and I laugh at myself, and thank you, see you soon. And that's true. Sometimes the most basic tasks are really easy to forget, and so it is great having these videos to be able to quickly go to, refresh your memory, and move on. Chocolate Chip Muffin says, I did it, that she made a slip knot, and she is 7 years old. And she has since, just by watching these videos, she has done a slip knot, she has cast on, and she is knitting row by row. I created this knitting series for absolute beginners, but I honestly had adults in mind. And so knowing that children, especially as young as 7,
are benefiting from this, it just warms my heart. So good going, chocolate chip muffin. I'm super proud of you and all of the young knitters that we are creating with this knitting series together. Day 6 is casting on, and Melissa Miller chimed in with really great advice. She says, for beginners, do not cast your stitches on too tightly onto your knitting needles, because actually beginning to knit, it will be a lot less stressful if you don't cast them on too tightly. And that is such a great point. And I have addressed it in my most recent video that I just launched yesterday. And I just think it's great that experienced knitters are jumping into the series and helping out with answering some questions and adding in your own little tips as well. So thanks guys so much for being a part of this knitting series. I really appreciate it. And I know all of the beginning knitters do as well. So day 7, how to knit stitch. I just love this. Chris David Hartley says that he's 23 and he has been knitting for 3 years, and his friends find it strange for a man to be knitting. However, he says, I like to prove that knitting is for everyone and it can be fun, and it's not just for females or older generations. And he says to keep up the great work. So I just love hearing from guys that are knitting. There are so many talented knitters out there that are men, and actually 20% of all of my viewers are men. So I know that knitting is usually thought of as more female, especially here in the United States, but there are some really great guy knitters out there, and I'm always really happy to see you on my channel. Now, Deanna Faulkner, she says that when she's using a bigger needle, the end stitches are never as tight or the same size as the middle stitches. And it's just a matter of making sure that your tension is even throughout. And I believe it's something that as you keep practicing, it'll just become much more naturally to you. And I think it's great that Carlos Espinoza chimed in with some expertise of his own. Oh, and I love this. Juanita Lane says, I am now a knitter. Yay. And that's the best sort of comment. I am so happy that you guys are becoming knitters. You have no idea. So congratulations, Juanita, and everybody else that has been knitting along with me these last couple of weeks. On day 8, we looked at the difference between knit stitches and knit rows. Asma Anatha, she says, please put up a video on how to count the rows. I sometimes get confused on how many rows I have done, so a tutorial on that will be helpful. And that is a really good idea. I will just answer right now that pen and paper, a lot of times just ticking off marks or doing your own sort of little system with pen and paper is a really common way that some of the most basic knitting, as well as some of the most complex patterns you can think of. It's a great way to track your progress. And I also have a video, I'll put it in the description below, on this cute little device called a row counter. There's a few different versions. This is a digital version, and you can check that out and see if that's something you want to give a try. Okay guys, well this went by really fast and this was really fun. So if you've enjoyed these sort of knit along questions and answer type videos, I think that this might be something that I should consider doing more often. Action item of the day, you guessed it, keep knitting. Just knit row by row. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at the purl stitch. We're going to switch it up. And now you can check off day 10 in your knitting series planner.
Hey guys, so how many rows? Let me know. With this knit along, how many rows of knitting did you accomplish doing it along with me in this video, chatting along? I hope that some of the information that I've been sharing in this absolute beginner knitting series has been really helpful to you. Thank you so much for being a part of it. It's been a lot of fun, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!